According to UNICEF, 117 children have been used to carry out attacks in public places in the Lake Chad Basin region since 2014. Nearly 80% of them are girls. The report says most of the children are often dragged before missions.
During this first quarter of 2017, there have been 14 incidents that were reported of children being used as suicide attackers, and in total, 27 children have been used. These 27 children actually are all from Nigeria. In the other 3 countries, there have been cases of suicide attacks, but they were perpetrated by adults.
The report further says the increase is alarming, as this was triple the number of children used as bombers within the same period in 2016. The use of children has sparked fear among residents and has led to the detention of almost 1,500 children across Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger and Chad.
Came our village to find me. They captured me for good 4 months.
Who can tell me the answer of 3 questions?
They took me to their camp. We have so many that they captured, and they used to beat us every day. Some of the things they are teaching you is bad things. They will teach you how to kill. I escaped once, and they catch me again. Then I lock me in their guard room. We are 6 inside the guard room. They killed the 3. We 3, the following day they will kill us. By God's grace, they gave us some water. We pour the water on the wall. We get screwdriver inside the room. So we use the screwdriver and dig a hole and get out on the prison by like 9:30 in the night.
UNICEF is calling for the community reintegration of children who were once under Boko Haram's control.
In many cases, when these children finally return to their communities or their families, they are stigmatized as children who have perpetrated acts within the community that are unacceptable. The problem with the rejection and stigma is that these children then become isolated. And if they become isolated, chances are they may actually find their way back to Boko Haram. So the work that needs to be done is to work with families, work with communities to find ways of accepting these children.
The UNICEF report coincides with the 3rd anniversary of the mass abduction of Chibok schoolgirls by Boko Haram. Boko Haram has been largely weakened since Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari came into power in 2015. The Lake Chad region, though, remains unstable, with some areas still inaccessible. Susan Mwongeli, CGTN.
Let's discuss this further with Deji Badmas, who joins us live from Lagos. Deji, that's a very disturbing report from UNICEF. Any reaction from the government?
Penina, you're quite right. It's quite disturbing, but not in any way surprising at all when you consider the number of suicide attacks we've had in the first quarter of this year, and when you consider the fact that virtually all the suicide attacks we've had have been carried out by very young people, especially girls, and you know, so not surprising. As to whether the government has reacted to this, well, we're yet to get any reaction yet from the government. We believe that reaction will come probably much later. So for the moment, the government isn't saying anything, but of course, to Nigerians, it's alarming that you know what the content of this report, but not in any way surprising at all, because we've seen Boko Haram carry out quite a number of suicide bombings this year.
Now, UNICEF is calling for reintegration of these children into the community. What is being done currently by the government to enable this?
Well, I can only tell you what the government is doing in terms of those arrested by the military. If you remember, just a few days ago, the military released about close to 600 children, women and young adults that had been in detention for quite a while. And usually what the military does is the government releases these detainees now to the state government in Borno State. For instance, the 600 that were released recently, just a couple of days back, that were actually released to the Borno state government in the northeast of the country. Now, the state government has a camp where it actually keeps these detainees when they're released. They are now rehabilitated in that camp, and they go through the process of a reintegration. Their families are brought in, and a kind of reintegration program takes place. We do not know how detailed that program is, but that is exactly what happens when the military releases Boko Haram detainees now to the state government. Now, in terms of those who might have escaped, I'm talking about those who were probably under the captive of Boko Haram and on their own escaped. We do not know what actually happens to them. If they are allowed to actually walk into this rehabilitation center, we do not know. But for those who are usually arrested, or those who were arrested by the military and then handed over to the Borno state government, there is a rehabilitation camp where they are taken care of. They are kept there for a while. They are de-radicalized sometime, especially for those who are, who have been confirmed to be previous members of the sect. And then after the rehabilitation program and reintegration program, of course, they are allowed to mix up in society. That's what the government of Borno State does. But in terms of the federal government doing it on its own, I'm not aware there's any program like that the federal government does. But of course, the federal government supports the state governments now in this program.
All right, we shall leave it there for now. Deji Badmas, live for us in Lagos.